Hey guys, and thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, we'd really appreciate it if you do. Today we're going to take a look at setting up some Ubiquiti Unifi equipment. First we're going to download and install Java. We're going to do that from this top link, not the bottom one. If you're English, that takes you to Spanish for some reason. Then we're also going to Google Unifi software download. Doesn't really matter which equipment you choose, as long as you go to any of them and get the network controller for your version. Of course, we're in Windows. So you want to start by installing Java and go ahead and allow it to uninstall any old versions that it might find. I've already got Java installed, so we're going to run the Unifi installer next. We're going to start the Unifi controller. It does take a moment, so oftentimes you'll click it in thinking it didn't start, but it is initializing. If you get errors here, it might be because you've got some port issues or you've got firewall issues. Like if this is on a server, there are ports to open, as well as other software could be using the ports that this needs. We're going to go ahead and allow this on all network types. I do recommend taking notes as you go. Alright, we're going to launch a browser to manage the network. It's always going to give you this certificate error. That's because you don't have an SSL certificate on the device or software. You just continue anyway. Alright, so you're going to start by setting up your controller name. If you do have a backup, I really don't recommend doing this restore from backup. Contrary to what I've read on a lot of forums, I've never had this work and I've always had to start over. You do have to agree, and I usually just leave the controller called Unifi Network. Alright, so I'm going to do an advanced setup because I'm not going to use remote access or a Ubiquiti account, but you can do those things, and we'll get into that in another video. For the local admin username, I'm just going to use admin. The password, I'm just going to make test. And the email, I'm going to do test@gmail.com. I am going to write those down though. And hit next. I do not want to automatically optimize or back up. You can see the network equipment has been discovered, but we're not going to select any of it now. And I'm not going to set up your Wi-Fi name yet. We're going to skip that. I am in Central Time, so we're going to keep Chicago. Alright, so here's the landing page. I do not like giving away information, so we're going to say don't send. This kind of tells you how everything is kind of working on the network, and it's kind of a cool interface for it. However, unfortunately, I've found that it's not really going to tell you that much about what's going on unless you've got equipment that's not working. We're going to jump straight to devices on the left. And you can see they're pending adoption. I'm going to go ahead and change the view. Typically the view looks like this. I make it the horizontal list view. I also like showing actions and customizing the columns. I like to see the MAC address, the IP, the status. I find experience to be completely pointless and it doesn't really work or tell you anything. I like model and version and uptime. So we could just adopt this equipment, but we're going to go ahead and run the upgrades. You could start at one end or the other. You could either start with an access point and then do any switches and then the gateway, or you can start with the gateway and then do switches and then an access point. I just really recommend you kind of pay attention to, if you've got a PoE switch, then you don't want to do the PoE switch firmware and the access point firmware at the same time, because when the switch reboots to do the firmware update, it's going to kill power to any access points. So we're going to start by upgrading that UAP-AC-LR. This is the long-range version. There is the Pro version and a few others. I use the Pros more often, but I do like this LR. While we wait on that, I want to show you a couple of images This is the Pro access point. You can see it's a little bit shorter or thinner vertically, and the LR is a little taller. They start with a white light, but then, once you get them going, they turn blue. They'll also flash to let you know that something's happening as far as like firmware upgrades and other things. The LR only has one port on it, and it is a PoE port, and they do come with a power injector. It is 24 volt PoE, which is kind of odd. The Pro does not typically come with a power injector, and they are 48 volt. There are two ports on the Pro access point. The primary, which is where you'd come out of your PoE switch, and then there's a secondary port, which would actually allow you to plug in another device to get on the network. So it essentially is a built-in little switch. We're using the Unifi Pro 3, which is the smaller Unifi device. There's also the Pro 4, which I use often as well. In order to do this setup, you at the very least would need the WAN connected to your internet and the LAN 1 connected to either a switch or your computer. Same on the Pro 4. It does have dual LAN and dual WAN, when on the Pro 3 it has a dual personality port that can do one or the other, but obviously not both. The only time you'll have issues with either one of these is if you're coming out of a device that gives out a 192.168.1 subnet, because that's going to conflict. The default subnet for the Unifi system is 192.168.1, and the default gateway is going to be a 192.168.1.1. I'll do another video showing how you get around that problem, because I have run into it before. You can see we're still updating the UAP-AC-LR, and we do want to keep the Unifi Security Gateway Pro 3 online while we do that. But while we wait, we can actually do some of the other config. Since this is software, this isn't actually relying on the internet at this point. I highly recommend disabling the wireless uplink if you don't plan on using that, because they're all the access points are going to broadcast an SSID that's hidden that looks kind of weird on analyzers, and I just really don't like that it does that by default. We're just going to go ahead and apply changes. Notice this is also where you would export the site, and so what I've done to kind of copy a config from one network to another, if I want to keep a lot of the same firewall rules and stuff, is I'll export that site, set up the new site, and then import the site. You can also rename them, but unfortunately default will always be there. So if you name your site, test, default will always be on the list as well, and you can't delete it. This is where we're going to set up our wireless network. You want to start by creating a wireless network. You're going to give the SSID. I'm just going to make that test. And I am going to use security, and we're going to use test for that password. If you apply guest policies, then this is going to automatically create rules to separate this network from the main network, and it's going to try to block any traffic there. As far as advanced options, this is where you'd set VLANs and some other settings as well. But for this video, we're just going to keep it simple, and we're going to say save. If I had already provisioned any or adopted any of the wireless access points, the second you hit save, it's going to go ahead and start provisioning this network on there. But since we haven't actually adopted them yet, it's not going to. Next, we're going to check out networks. By default, you've got LAN in here, but this does not work or do anything if you don't have the USG gateway, USG 3 or 4. So it's kind of confusing to people their first time, because you can go in here and do all this network setup stuff, but unless you've got an appliance that uses it, it won't make any difference. That's why they say USG required. I'm fine with the 192.168.1.1 subnet, but you may want to consider changing that if it's going to conflict with anything else, or if you're going to use a VPN, I really recommend changing it. I usually go on and make this like a 10, and then you want to update the DHCP range to reflect that as well. But for today, we're just going to make it a 1.1. We are going to use the DHCP server, but I do want to go ahead and change the subnet pool of DHCP addresses. We're going to make that 100 to 199. That way I can reserve a bunch of IPs to use static local addresses on. We're also going to go ahead and set up a DNS server manually, and I'm going to use Google DNS for DNS1 and the Google DNS secondary for DNS2. Once I get all those settings in there, I'm going to save it. Now again, if you had already adopted a device, it would immediately provision when you do that. Let's go check back on our firmware upgrade, and it does look like it completed. So now we're going to upgrade the firmware on the Usg Pro 3. I can go ahead and adopt this access point. So what that's going to do is provision it, and at this stage it is going to go ahead and create that SSID and go ahead and put that WPA setting on there as well. Notice it got a DHCP address, so that of course is going to change here since I changed the DHCP pool, and the Usg Pro 3 is still using its default IP of 192.168.1.1. Our firmware update is complete, so we're going to go ahead and adopt the Usg Pro 3. Now at this point it is going to pick up a public IP address, which is temporary, not static, from Comcast, and then it is also going to go ahead and change the DHCP pool. So when we restart the UAP-AC-LR, this IP will change. It's really confusing to me that they make this the local IP, and then once you provision it, this becomes the WAN IP. That took me a while to figure out. While we're waiting on that to provision, I'm going to click on the UAP-AC-LR so you can kind of see about it. And the main things I like to do is go in the config and give it an alias. So like this one is upstairs in my house, so we're going to say upstairs. And that'll provision immediately. This is also where you would set a static IP. So we're going to go ahead and do that now. I do recommend being very diligent and careful when you're doing this, because if you do mess any of this up, it will accept it when it is incorrect, and it will create issues for you. So I'm just going to go ahead and use Google DNS for 1 and 2. Give it an IP address outside of the DHCP range, Class C subnet mask, and use our gateway since we're not going to change the subnet. And then you have to queue changes and then apply them. That's kind of cool though, because you could queue changes for like 3 or 4 network devices and apply them all at once. You'll see that provision here in a moment. You can see the Usg Pro 3 is provisioning now. I still don't have full control. Oh, there it goes. Alright, so the alias, you can change this. So I usually do USG, but you can leave it that, you know, what it is default, or change it to whatever you want. This is where you can kind of see a little bit more. So you see the version, which is the firmware. This is the MAC address. And then you can see the network. So this would show the WAN and the LAN IPs. It's still provisioning, so it's not completely fixed that. It shows your ports and what they're doing. You can see WAN 1/LAN 2 port is disabled right now. So let's say you did want to make another WAN or LAN. You would do that within the networks. You can see you got the main LAN and a WAN. You can create a new network. So this could be a LAN 2 network. So like let's say you're doing this for easier PCI compliance for credit cards, you would make it a LAN 2, or you could use that for any type of DMZ role. And then you could make another WAN, which is automatically going to know to be WAN 2. You can make it DHCP or static. This is exactly the same. If you want to change your WAN to a static IP, you would go in here and go ahead and set that static, like if you have, your ISP provides you a static IP. If you do have DHCP and you do have a modem router combo unit like from Comcast or Xfinity or Cox or Time Warner or any of these ISPs, Verizon, you do want to bridge it so that you're not double NATing and double routing, because that will cause problems with port forwarding and other things, especially gaming. Alright, you can see all of our devices are connected, and we no longer have the upgrade or adopt options. We do have a locate option on the access points. When I click locate, that's going to make that blue ring on the outside of the physical device start flashing. Same with the switches. They've got a blue ring. It's a square, I guess, really, and that will locate by flashing that. It's really convenient because you can set up a bunch of devices, all at once, and then distribute them throughout the building or home or whatever you're doing. You can also remotely restart your devices here. I do recommend going in and creating a backup file pretty much immediately. So you go to download file. That's going to go ahead and download a UNF file, and that's going to show the version number and the date in that file. This is what you'll restore if you have an issue. So you could go to upload file, select that file, and restore from that backup. I do recommend doing that before any upgrades to the software as well, which when you install the newer version of software, when they do come out, it's going to ask you if you have a backup, which I really like. There's a maintenance tab that gives you a few options. The controller, which is going to tell you like your controller name and some of those things. Remote access is a good one. You can enable remote access, and if you've set up a Ubiquiti account, you can put in that email address and password, and as long as this software client is running, now your browser doesn't have to be running, but as long as this client itself is running, then this will be accessible as long as it's online through that Unifi cloud account. So it's kind of like having the cloud key and some of the other product offerings from Unifi without having to buy them, and there is no cost to that either, which I really like. So once you do that, this would show enabled, and then you'd be able to go into your web browser and go to it and make sure it's accessible. Routing and firewall is going to give you all your firewall rules, which are all default right now. You can create groups that allows you to create address groups for IPv4, v6, or ports. I do recommend you tick the box first, because if you're wanting to do like some TCP ports and you start putting them in and adding them, and then you go, oh wait, these are ports, the second you click it, they go away and you have to start over. So if you're like 10 or 15 in, that'll really kind of make you frustrated. Port forwarding is in here as well, but you'll notice some pretty conspicuous things aren't in here, like NAT, and I really wish they would add that to the web UI. I do really like the Ubiquiti equipment. I think it's incredibly quick and powerful for how inexpensive it is, but I think rather than spending their time making cute dashboards and continuing to change this UI, not always for the better, we would really like some richer features without having to go as far as command line stuff. And once you get into the more advanced side of the Ubiquiti Unifi equipment, you actually have to custom write JSON files, because if you make command line changes, they're going to lose those changes when you reboot. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. And if you have anything you want to add, please put that in the comments as well. I'm always glad to learn something new. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.